Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be reading a story called Watch Out for the Hedley Beast. Enjoy. There was once a cheerful old woman named Tessie who lived by herself in a tiny cottage outside of town. Tessie was very poor, but she earned a living by doing simple chores for the farmer's wife around the village. They paid her with a small meal, a cup of tea, and a few coins here and there. That was enough for Tessie. She was a happy old soul who didn't seem to have a care in the world. Tessie had a long walk home after work, so the housewives always sent her home early. They didn't want her to meet up with the fearsome Hedley beast that lurked about at night. It was a terrible creature that hollered and screamed and was able to turn itself into all sorts of shapes. The village folks were scared to death of ever meeting the creature. One fine evening, when Tessie was hurrying home before dark, she spotted a big black pot by the side of the road. She stopped to look at it. "Now that's a fine pot," she said. "I wonder who could have left it there." She looked all around to see if anyone was nearby. No one was in sight. "Ah, well," she said, "it would most likely has a hole in it, but it would make a fine pot for a plant or two. I think I'll take it home." Tessie bent her creaking old back and lifted the lid. "Good gracious!" she cried, jumping back. "If it isn't full of gold pieces! Well, how lucky can I be?" she declared, as she walked around it. "Oh, I do be feelin' rich and grand, but how will I ever get this heavy pot home?" She thought for a minute. Then she took off her long shawl and fastened one end to the pot and dragged it along and humming as she went. "What luck!" she cried. "Why, I can buy a new house and some furniture and fill me cupboard with good food. Aye, and I can even invite the farmer's wife to tea." After a while, Tessie was getting tired from dragging the pot. She stopped by the road and sat down on a log to rest. She lifted the pot's lid to take one more look at her treasure. "Mercy!" she cried. "What's this? Me pot of gold is filled with carrots. Why, that's strange. I could have sworn that it was filled with gold. It must have been the sun blinding my eyes. Ah, well," Tessie continued, "it was nice to be rich if only for a moment. It's just as well, I suppose. Gold would be a nuisance. I'd always be worried about who might be wanting to rob me." Off she treaded again, dragging the pot behind her. "I'm still very lucky," she said. "Carrots are good. Why, I can throw some into a bit of stew or soup, and I can make muffins and carrot cake. Oh, I do love carrot cake." Soon Tessie's arms were aching again, and she had to rest. When she stopped, she glanced over at her pot. "Heavens!" she cried. "Look what it's done. It's nothing but a big chunk of wood now. What happened to me lovely carrots?" Tessie thought about it for a minute. "Well, I've been looking for something to hold the door open with. Isn't that a bit of good luck?" Now she was in a hurry to see how the chunk of wood will look by her door, so she treaded down the hill to her cottage as fast as her old legs could carry her. When she reached the door, she stooped to untie her shawl and saw that the wood was unchanged. "Well, that's a blessing," she said. "What luck I'm having! It looked fine by the door, and if I get tired of it I can always chop it up for firewood. But suddenly the wood began to move. Then it jumped and squealed and started to grow and grow and grow. Soon it was almost as big as the house. 4 long legs, a brown bushy tail burst out of the wood. A huge head and face formed. Its eyes were fiery, and smoke was spilling from its nostrils. The creature looked something like a bull, and it snorted and shrieked and kicked its feet in the air. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," cried Tessie. "If it isn't the Hedley beast come paying me a visit. What luck I'm having." The beast stopped its kicking and shrieking and glared down at her. "You're not afraid of me?" it bellowed. "Not at all," said Tessie quite calmly. "In fact, I feel rather lucky. Fancy me meeting the Hedley beast itself, and me being so free with it. Most folks run away screaming," cried the beast. "You should be scared out of your wits." "Well, I'm not," declared Tessie. "In fact, you made my walk home very pleasant indeed. Now then, I'm going to go in and have a bit of supper." She pushed open the door and turned to say goodbye, but when she looked around, the creature was gone. Instead, there stood a little man with a snow-white beard, wearing a neat brown suit. He was shuffling his feet and looking rather bashful. "Well now," said Tessie, looking him up and down, "I'm thinking there's more bark than bite here." Her merry eyes twinkled. "Would you care to join me for a bit of cheese and biscuits?" "That's very kind of you," said the little man. "I think I'll like that." When they sat down to supper, somehow the cheese grew bigger and the biscuits multiplied, and out of nowhere a bowl of apples and a huge chunk of ham and several loaves of bread appeared. They had a delightful meal, and when they were finished, they sat by the fire. The old man told Tessie about his pranks and how he scared people. She laughed until her tears rolled down her cheeks. "What lovely evening it has been," said Tessie. "Delightful," replied the little man. As time went on, he often came to visit Tessie. She loved their little chats. Many times Tessie would find her wood pile stacked high and her cupboards full of good food, but she never mentioned a word to it of anyone. The townfolk were still frightened of ever meeting the Hedley beast, and the farmers' wives continued to warn Tessie, "Watch out for the Hedley beast." But Tessie would just chuckle and say, "Ah, well, maybe he's just so lonely and looking for a bit of mischief once in a while." The end.